Hello everyone and welcome to Soul GPS. Today's video is for all of you who have been through or are going through something that's akin to a spiritual crisis after you have experienced the pain and suffering of narcissistic abuse. What is a spiritual crisis? Well, it is a feeling that can be compared to a sense of groundlessness, a feeling where you have nothing to really hold on to, and it's the result of losing trust. And the loss of trust begins with losing trust in the other person first. The person who you thought was really there for you, who really loved you, who told you all of these magnificent things only to turn around and do exactly the opposite. It's the person that you had faith in, the person that you opened your heart to, the person that devastated you, devalued you, and then walked away. And tried to blame you for all of what happened, right? So this is a very painful process to go through this, because it is putting everything into question. First, you question the person. Second, you question yourself. So you lose trust in your own choices. You ask yourself, how did I let this happen? How did I not see the signs? How did I allow this person to treat me this way? How did I not listen to the people who were trying to warn me? And then finally, you may go to the third stage of loss of trust, and that is loss of trust in the higher self, in the universe, in God, in a spiritual force. Because how can you trust that there is some higher good, something more powerful, if it allows for all this evil to be here on this planet? Well, there is a bit of an error in this form of thinking, and it took me some time to get to it, because I was really angry, and I did lose my connection with the higher power, with the higher self, when I was going through my own recovery. And the error is that the architect, the creator of the universe, if you believe in it or not, regardless, but there's got to be something bigger than us, we didn't do it, is not responsible for what happened to you, for what happened to me, for what happened to us. It just is. What and who is responsible is people. It's what we've done to each other, what we're continuing to do to each other, what we're doing to nature. There's something in us that is very destructive and is running rampant on the planet. Some people may say that Satan is ruling the earth. Some people will say that it's been possessed by some evil spirit. There are all sorts of theories going around the earth. What I personally think it is that we're simply very young still in our evolution. We're still like children who have found matches. We found some really powerful tools that have been developed on our planet, and coupled with our greed, unfortunately, it brought us to where we are. We are living currently through a time where narcissism is epidemic, where people compare each other not so much based on who we are as people and how much good do we do for our planet and for our communities, but rather about how much we have, what car do we drive, how much money we make, how do we look. We are selfie obsessed. This is the reality in which we're in, and I'm not here to bash it and to question it and tell you that all of it is bad. It's not. It's just where we are. So when you ask yourself the question, how did I end up here? Who did this? Realize that it's not just you, although of course your choices definitely contributed to you arriving at this place where you are right now. But it was also the choices that were made for you when you were younger that have programmed you to be the way that you are. These were also choices of the other person that you were in a relationship with, and the choices that were made for them before they were conscious and able to make choices. These are the choices that were made ages ago by people who came before us. These are the choices that are made by the other billions of people who are currently on the planet, who are contributing to the climate of the reality in which we're in, who are feeding this machine. And also there are, of course, people who are helping to stop it, who are rising up and standing up and fighting for truth and fighting for what's right. So take the burden, take the weight off your shoulders. It's not just you, and it's not the spirit of the universe. It is humans. It is us. We did this. Now, there is also something that is quite transcendental about suffering. While I feel that there is way too much suffering on our planet that is completely unnecessary, as we do have the technology, the abundance, the means to create a utopia for everyone, we're choosing not to do this because of the way that we are. And so we're living in this reality of suffering. Okay, so yes, we have suffering. The Buddhists said it. There is suffering. We have it. There's something really powerful about it, because it is through suffering that we grow. It is through suffering that we pause, we look at the things that don't work, and we make new choices. So if you are in this place where you're feeling like you don't have anything to hold on to, like you're questioning all of the beliefs, all of the things that maybe you used to take for granted, take heart and know that you're moving through a stage where everything is up in the air, where you are floating groundless, kind of like the main character from Gravity when she detaches from the space station and she's floating through space, terrified. You may be feeling like that right now. I know I've been through it, and I felt like this. I didn't know who I was. I questioned everything. I wanted to end it. It was too much pain. It was too difficult. If the world is like this, I didn't want to be in it. But know that it is very natural to perceive the world as a dismal place to be in when you're feeling so low, when you're feeling so hurt. That stage will pass. And I want to give you 3 steps of things you can do with yourself, for yourself, in order to move through this process, move through this spiritual crisis, to allow yourself to more naturally arrive at a deeper connection with something more transcendental. First, you begin by asking yourself the question, did what I used to believe in that I no longer believe in come from without, or did it come from within? Where did it originate? And in most cases, it comes from without. It is something we get indoctrinated in when we're little. It starts with a family, maybe it's some religious practice, maybe then there's school and work, and then boom, we're socialized, right? And all of this stuff, it comes from without, comes from the outside. So when we're going through a spiritual crisis, what happens is we're turning inside out. Everything, it's like you're taking a pocket and you're flipping it inside out, and all of the debris begins to fall out of it. So allow yourself to go through this. That's step 1. Give yourself the space, the time to question, to grieve the lack of connection, to mourn and to doubt everything that you've been taught before, because if there are holes in it, it's better to let it go than to try to hold on to something that just no longer works. So it's okay to not know who you are and what you believe in anymore. And even if you find yourself being in a place where you've become bitter and cynical, just acknowledge that you have your reasons and let yourself experience that. Don't try to change. Be yourself. Let yourself experience exactly who you are and how you feel in the moment. The second thing you can do is really powerful. It's very difficult, but if you can do it, you're going to experience a lot of freedom. For peace of mind, own all of your thoughts, even if you know that they're not yours to begin with. Because when you really pause and start to pay attention to all these thoughts running through your mind, you may discover something really interesting, which is that they're fragments of things you've heard outside, by your boss, by your family, by your ex, by your friends. They're probably fragments of things you heard when you were very little. They're things you picked up from television, even from advertising, from music, from movies, and so on. So it's a mishmash of things. These are not your thoughts. That's a really good thing to know. But what's even more powerful to do is to kind of lock the gates for a moment and look at everything that you've accumulated and own it. Say, okay, sure, maybe these are not my thoughts, but I am responsible for keeping them in. And now the real hard work begins, right? We roll up our sleeves and we go to town and we observe, we detach. One of the best things you can do is to practice meditation. That helps you to prune the thoughts you no longer need, because as we know, thoughts influence our emotions. And having a negative thought, such as having a flashback, for example, thinking about something that happened in the past that reminds you of a trauma, can have very negative consequences when it comes to compromising your mood. So if you really want to take control of your mood, take control of your thoughts. This is advanced work, but it is incredibly liberating. Even 2-3 minutes of meditation every day can be very helpful. If you're against it, if you just don't want to do it, I understand. You have your own path, you have your own choices. But what you want to cultivate is having this detached point of view, this detached perspective, when you can observe your thinking. It's like meta thinking. So you're thinking about thinking, and you may find some really interesting patterns in your mind. So that is very, very helpful. You may also reconnect at this stage in your journey with older practices that you have picked up earlier on that actually did work. These can be spiritual practices. So I'm going to share with you some of my own experiences, for instance, just so I can land it home. So when I was going through my recovery, I completely lost touch with any higher source. I felt like I was floating, like I was this balloon in space. I was quite bitter. I was very cynical about things. And I let myself, well, initially I was fighting it because I was afraid that if I sort of break the final thread, it's going to get really bad. So I resisted it, but then I finally let myself do it. And what happened is I started to actually naturally and spontaneously reconnect with other practices that I picked up in the past that are actually religious practices that helped me move through some of the stages of my healing. And because I studied many religions in my life, what I did is I kind of borrowed from different ones. So I would do yoga to calm my mind, and of course meditation. I would practice devotional dance to let energy move through me faster and bring in some positivity into my body and heal my body that was quite inflamed after the experiences. And also I did something else that I even was surprised by. So I come from Poland, and my country is very Catholic, and I haven't been practicing for a very long time. I'm not going to get into my reasons here. It's all intimate and individual, and everybody does what they want to, and I respect that. But I was struggling with something that I had done which wouldn't give me peace. I was seeking forgiveness, and I didn't feel like I myself was able to give it to myself. Like I needed somebody else to help me with it. So I spontaneously decided to step into this cathedral, and I went into a confession. And I was really lucky because from my past I have some horror stories from confessions when I was a teenager. I had a really, really, really wonderful priest. And I just, for the first time in 20 years, I went ahead and I did it. And it was so incredibly cathartic. I cried for like 20 minutes. He kept me in. He told me some wonderful things. And then I walked out of there. I did my prayer, and I felt cleansed. And I felt like all this weight came off of me. So I found that to be incredibly helpful. And I was sort of stunned, like after having been through all of this anger and bitterness at God for having done all these things, having put me through all this suffering, and having put so many innocent people through this suffering without really connecting it, that it's us humans doing it to each other. And what this was, it was quite a refreshing experience. So that's what I did, and it came from an authentic place. It's not something that I'm doing on a regular basis, because that in itself was a really powerful experience that lasted, the benefits of which lasted for a long time. But if there's anything that's calling to you and you've been hesitating, but you feel like it could be helpful for you, then I wouldn't hesitate. I would go for it and try it out. And then the final stage, which sort of permeates all the other stages, is basically finding your authenticity by learning to be with yourself just as you are, without censoring yourself, without trying to change yourself. Accept yourself, observe yourself, allow yourself to just be exactly who you are without questioning it. And this way, you will begin to notice your conditional self. So it's the self that grew as a result of conditions being placed upon it. And then you can begin to delineate between your original self, your natural self, and the conditional self. Both of these parts of you are you, they're true. And you don't have to eliminate one on the other. But what becomes truly fascinating and transcendental is just observing it and being able to see it in action. So this may be a complex topic. Hopefully I was able to convey it to you as to how to move through a spiritual crisis. Don't put any timeline on this process for yourself. If it takes you a month, 2, 3 years, it doesn't matter. So give yourself that space to just go through however you're moving through it. And maybe eventually you'll allow yourself to experience love and trust again. And wonder. Maybe you'll have the ability to walk outside, look up at the starry sky, and feel the awe of this universe in which we are. We're children of it, we're in it, we're of it, and who knows what it is and who knows why it is here. But we're in it and we're of it, and we're having an experience, including the painful one, that is part of our journey. And I wish you all the best during this holiday season. I wish you all the best as you are spending more time with yourself, having a reflective time, and hopefully you have the ability to cultivate more love and connection, first and foremost with yourself. Thank you so much.